Yo, what's good with you? Back in black with another Enlisted video. If you guys are new to the channel and you love shooting games just like me, make sure you aim for that like button and shoot that subscribe button as well. It'll help you find better teammates and improve your skill-based matchmaking. At least I hope so. Today we are comparing all the BR2 rifles for the Russian army and Enlisted to see which of them is the best for you in your particular playstyle. Starting out with the Mosin M44 Carbine, this rifle is a derivative of the M91/30 rifle featuring an internal rocker bayonet, which is just another way to say a foldable permanent bayonet. We'll also be talking about the M91/30 rifle a little later in the video, but basically for the time being, the M44 was developed in late 1943 to replace the more dated 1938 carbine from my previous videos and fulfill that niche of a shorter length, more maneuverable rifle for those closer range engagements that were directly a result of the Stalingrad battle. As such, unlike the Mosin 1938, these rifles were made with frontline troops in mind as well as the rear guard. We're also looking at a max damage of 20.5, which is going to be the lowest in the tier, but still plenty of one-shot kills to be had, considering you only need 10 points of damage to down someone. Even after 200 meters, we're looking at 12.9 per shot, so still pretty good in the grand scheme of things. However, sticking to the theme of why this gun was even made in the first place, I'm pretty sure the iron sights for this rifle will be the hardest out of the three for you to use at long range, which will further nudge you into those close range engagements where you should be able to take advantage of the subjectively faster ADS time and bayonet. Something else that may encourage you to get a little bit closer to your enemy is the worst in tier muzzle velocity at 775 meters per second, which isn't bad per se by any means, but just further exemplifies how you should mold your playstyle around this weapon. We also get a second best rate of fire coming in at 54 rounds per minute, accompanied by a tier best reload speed coming in at a base of 2.9 seconds. So in the grand scheme of things, there's going to be very little downtime between you getting another 5 rounds down range. The last important stat that really shines a light on how this weapon is supposed to be used, in my personal opinion, is the tier worst but still excellent shot deviation coming in at 15, which I can say I occasionally found myself missing more when trying to use this weapon at medium and longer ranges. But the reason why is really just a combination of the bad iron sights, which are kind of bulky, and the shot deviation. So just playing into the strengths of this weapon, I found myself trying to get a little bit closer to the enemy to make sure I did not miss, and almost adopting a run and gun type of mentality with this bolt action rifle, which is cool for the maps where there's a large amount of trenches or buildings to clear out. But for the maps that have a lot of wide open fields, you would be better served more than likely with the other two weapons that we'll be talking about in one moment. But before moving on to the next rifle, I just want to emphasize one more time with the M44 that although I have been kind of urging you people to use it at closer ranges, I never want to make it seem like a rifle, especially a bolt action rifle, is bad at medium to longer range engagements for any reason. A lot of it, again, is just really dependent on how easy it is for the iron sights to make it for you to see the target. And I find that with this one, you just really have to slow down and focus if you're trying to hit long range targets with this weapon. And I think a lot of that is just a result of the shorter barrel. So again, not that I want to make it seem like you can't perform well at long range with this rifle. It's just that it's better acclimated for close range engagements, hence the name carbine. moving on to the previously mentioned Mosin M91/30 rifle, I believe this is going to be the best option for riflemen who prefer to operate from further ranges, or for those who prefer a rifle that just has arguably the best iron sights in the tier, especially for those of you who prefer ringed iron sights in particular. We're getting a second best in tier max damage coming in at 23.7, and even out to 100 meters we're looking at a damage of 19.4, which is going to be great, especially when you couple that with the subjectively easier to use iron sights. Not only will it be easier for you to see further away targets, but you'll also have to do less shot leading since the bullet velocity is tied for first at 815 meters per second, making the connection feel almost instant at any range you decide to shoot somebody. Another neat thing about this rifle, definitely worth mentioning, is that not only will it be easier for you to line up your targets in quick succession, you should also have literally no reservations about spamming the trigger as fast as you can, as we are getting a tier best or tied for tier first shot deviation coming in at 13. And with all these improvements to our range capabilities, we do have some trade-offs that definitely need to be mentioned, because it's not all, sunshine and rainbows. Most notably is going to be that our fire rate receives a substantial hit, going all the way down to a tier worst 49 rounds per minute, so that will definitely cause you to play more cautiously, carefully, and further back than you would with any other rifle that sports a higher fire rate. The only other thing that I would say you should be wary of with this rifle is the tier worst reload speed coming in at 3.4 seconds, which again shows that this rifle is the one that you want to use for patience and precision. On the flip side though, I will mention that this rifle still sports a bayonet unlike our last competitor, so although it is not necessarily recommended for you to fight in close range with this rifle, if you do find yourself clearing a building or trenches, I would say that you should go out of your way to make good use of that bayonet in order to make up for how long it will take for you to cycle in between your rounds and how long it will take for you to reload in general with this weapon. Coming up last but certainly not least is going to be the Winchester M1895, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but if I'm not mistaken, this is the only lever action operated rifle in the game. So not only is that rare in itself, what's also going to make this rifle stand out apart from any other rifle, not only in the game but especially in this tier, is going to be the maximum damage coming in at a tier best 24.3, and even out to 100 meters we're looking at a very good damage of 19.9, so excellent retention there is being seen. And for that reason alone, this is obviously the weapon that I would recommend to any enlisted player who wants to ensure the most one-hit kills no matter what range they decide they actually want to engage their foes at. Keeping the deal sweet, we are also retaining a tied for first bullet velocity coming in at 815 meters per second, so even out to a pretty good distance the shot connection should feel more or less instantaneous, and that same concept of congruence can be applied to the shot deviation as well, which will remain at a tier first 13. But what kicks it up a notch objectively for the Winchester is going to be that best in tier fire rate coming in at a base of 66 rounds per minute, which can be directly attributed to that lever action mechanism, making follow-up shots whether you're at close range or far range a breeze, especially for aggressive players, and on top of making range play more or less a trivial task since we are either matching or exceeding the stats on the M91/30 rifle. In terms of cons, in my humble opinion, there are only two things that could really be presented as a negative aspect of this rifle. And the first is going to be the simple fact that this weapon obviously doesn't have a bayonet attached, which is going to be a net negative in close quarters engagements, because not having a knife on the end of your weapon to stab somebody with if you run out of bullets is something that can get you killed, especially when you consider how jank melees are in Enlisted, generally speaking, especially when using the butt of your rifle. So always something to consider. The only other thing that I would really take into consideration as far as like a con would be the iron sights, which I imagine some of you may find harder to use at longer ranges for target acquisition. Not that I find these simplistic iron sights to be a bad thing, and I honestly feel like they might bode well for you, especially in closer range engagements. But again, when it comes to seeing people at far range, considering how flat and simplistic they are, I do see some people out there that may have a little bit of technical difficulties with that. But it is a rifle that I would definitely encourage trying to get used to. Something else I think that is worth noting is that I think due to the insane shot deviation and the follow-up shot potential of this weapon, this one also has some of the best hip firing potential out of all manually loaded rifles as well. So something that I would consider, especially when people are right in your face with this rifle. So in summation, looking at all three of these rifles, I believe we have two that are close in overall effectiveness and one that is better by a pretty clear margin. The M44 Carbine has the edge in reload speed, which is a pretty important stat, but aside from that, the only other thing this rifle excels in is having the lowest recoil, which is basically irrelevant on bolt action rifles. And considering the decent to subpar iron sights pending on your taste, the only other real compliment I can give this rifle is the fact that it has a bayonet and marginally faster aim speed than the other two rifles, so third place felt pretty appropriate here for that one. When I look at the Mosin M91/30, I do genuinely appreciate the much better sight picture overall, but there is a clear substantial trade-off in the other important stats like fire rate and reload speed, which make it abundantly clear that this is the slow down and take your time rifle out of the group. And when it comes to weapons like that, I feel like they tend to be way better on defense as opposed to offense. So due to those limitations that basically affect half your time playing the game unless you just always play defense, I felt that second place would be an appropriate spot for this rifle. And to be fair again to the Mosin M91, I will say that one does have a bayonet, which it does help in those close quarter situations or maybe when you're pushing that building. But in comparison to the Winchester, I think this one is definitely the best option out of the three regardless of your circumstances, as you're literally excelling in almost all important stats from damage to bullet velocity to shot deviation, and the most impactful of those stats, which is going to be the fire rate. And let's say you're one of those people who don't really like the iron sights, again, I would implore you to just give it a fair shake and try and get good with it, because again, if you give it your best shot, pun intended, I feel like this rifle just objectively is going to be the best performer for you. And the only downside or con that I can say about it is that it doesn't have a bayonet. Overall though, these are just my personal opinions. I am hoping with the combination of my explanations and the gameplay, you can help decide for yourself which rifle you want to spend all your silver on, upgrading for your soldiers and buying over and over again. If you enjoyed or found anything I said insightful, don't forget to aim for that like button and shoot that subscribe button as well. It'll help you find better teammates, improve your skill-based matchmaking, and yeah, hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Black Guy out.